Hi, all. Welcome to Chapter 2 in Marketing Analytics. In this chapter, we're going to talk about a lot of different concepts. There's a lot of formulas here. There's a lot of things to learn. So I'm just going to go through each of these concepts, hopefully slowly enough that you'll understand everything that I'm saying. If there are questions, just please do not hesitate to let me know. I do follow the book somewhat on these, so it wouldn't hurt to maybe have it out while you do this. Taking notes is probably a good idea as well. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is market share. So market share is just basically what percentage of the market sales were earned or gained by any particular company. Okay, so you probably hear this term a lot in cases. You probably hear it in the news a lot, but really it's just market share. So market share basically can be calculated with two different things in mind. The first thing is revenue or units. So revenue market share is just what percentage of the dollars sold in this particular market were attributed to one company, whereas unit market share is how many units of all the units sold were attributed to one particular company. So let's look at an example. This is straight from the book. You've got these brands, Zipper, Twister, A1, and so on and so on. It lists how many units each of them sold in the thousands, and also how many euros revenue they earned, also in the thousands. So let's look at A1. A1 had revenues of 187,500. Again, it's in thousands, but we'll just represent it in thousands. Market revenues were 937,500. So to do revenue market share, you just divide those two numbers. Okay, so 187.5 divided by 937.5 gives you a revenue market share of 20%. Okay, now if we look at unit market share, they sold 7.5 thousand units. The entire number of units sold in the market were 50,000. Apply the same formula there using units instead of revenues. You end up with firm market unit sales of 15%. So the question is, why are these numbers different? Why aren't they the same? And the answer has to do with the relative prices of the different competitors. Okay, so if you sell at higher margins, you're going to have lower volume. Okay, so you'll end up with potentially higher revenue market share but lower unit market share. However, if you sell kind of low end, low margin products, you're going to have a higher volume. So you're going to end up with a higher unit market share number than you would revenue market share. So why have both market share figures? Just to give you a full understanding of what's going on out there. Okay. All right, here's an example of market share numbers for the cell phone industry, and this is halfway through 2016, and so you can see here that kind of this evolution of market shares here. So look at Android, for example. 2009, they had less than 10% market share. 2010, it was over 20%. And you can see how it kind of steadily grew. Okay, this table is a little bit misleading because it doesn't really reflect, I don't think, fully iOS, which is going to be Apple. If you're an Apple user, you're probably shocked to see that they trail Android big time, but know that most of that market share is based outside the United States. So iOS dominates in the United States, Android does elsewhere. Okay, then we have something called relative market share, which is just the relationship of any company's market share to the largest competitor's market share. So if you're following the leader, you may want to know how far off you are. Okay, so if you look at A1 units 7,500, or 7,500 units sold. The market leader was Zipper, who sold 25,000 units. So A1's relative market share is 30%. In other words, their market share is 30% of the leader's market share. Okay, do the same thing for revenues, calculate the same numbers, and you end up with 50% relative market share. Okay, give you kind of a real world example. Coca-Cola's got a market share of 48.6%, Pepsi's is 20.5%. Jones Soda, if you've ever been to the Northwest, you probably know of Jones Soda. They are sold in Texas, but under very minimal distribution. Okay, so for Pepsi, we want to know where we are relative to Coke. We can just take our market share and divide it by their market share, and we end up with 42.18%. So our market share is 42% of Coke's market share. Okay, so you can see here that I've converted the percentages to decimals, and anytime you do any sort of calculation with percentages, you need to convert it to a decimal. Jones relative market share, you can do the same calculation, and you'll see here that they are way, way, way off. They are a small player. Okay, market concentration, just here how concentrated is the market, and you can define market concentration any way you want, but typically we talk about it as the market share of the top 3 competitors in the marketplace. Okay, so by units, market concentration is 85%. So you'll take 50 and 20 and 15, the market shares of the top 3 competitors, and you just sum them up. By dollars or revenue, actually it should be euros here. You've got 40 plus 21.3 plus 20 gives you market concentration of 81.3%. So the market is a little bit more concentrated by units than it is by dollars. You get into other industries, market concentration may be much, much, much lower if there's many more competitors. All right, then we have what we call brand development index and category development index. Basically, with these, we are calculating, to what degree does, the brand get exposure or get, patronage throughout a particular group of households. Okay, so BDI and CDI, we generally calculate BDI, but not necessarily use CDI that often. Okay, so from the book, you've got cereal brand Oatie's. They've got a target of childless households. This is a segment they're targeting. Okay, we know that they sell 1 box per 100 households in this childless households segment. We know that overall, Oatie's sells 1 box per 80 households. Okay. So basically, again, we're looking at the relationship between sales to our targeted segment, comparing it to our sales to all segments. Okay, that's really what this is about. In other words, we want to know, does our target segment buy more of our product per capita, we could say, than do the entire population, basically. Okay, so our BDI here is 1 per 100 divided by 1 per 80. That gives us a brand development index of 0.8. And basically this is an index, so 1.0 means the 2 groups perform equally well. If your BDI is less than 1, that means that your target segment performs less well than does all the segments. Okay, so basically trying to wrap your head around this. So basically we have a targeted segment, childless households, and we know that we sell basically 1 unit per every 100 childless households. But we also know overall that we sell 1 box of our cereal per 80 total households, and that will be the childless households that we're targeting, plus all other segments that we're not necessarily directly targeting. So again, we sell less frequently to our targeted segment, childless households, than we do to population as a whole. Like it says there, category sales work the same way, but this is for an entire category. Okay, so it could be category sales to a segment, targeted segment, base in relation to category sales to all population. Okay, but again, we calculate BDI more than CDI. Here's another example, just to hopefully drive it home. Colgate toothpaste, and this is calculated a little bit differently. Colgate toothpaste, your targeted segment is males in their 40s, and we know that there are 996,000 households that fall into this particular segment. Within the segment, we've sold 27,000 units, but we also know that we've sold 190,000 units to 3.5 million households. Okay, so calculating the BDI again for our targeted segment is 27,000 divided by 996,000, and overall it's 193,000 divided by 3.5 million. Okay, so the BDI comes out to be 4.5, which is pretty big. So we do much better in this particular targeted segment than we do overall. Okay, so hopefully that this will tell us basically that marketing has done a good job at identifying a segment that is highly likely to buy our product. So if you're in marketing, you get this number, you should be very happy. Market penetration, number of customers or households who have purchased a product in a particular product category as a percentage of the total population. So from the book, Big Bomb Flea Fogger, it's a funny name, a bit of a tongue twister here. We know that 500 households purchased this product, but we know that the households who purchased any brand fogger was 750. We also know there were 10,000 total households. That becomes our population. So our market penetration becomes 750 divided by 10,000. So again, we're concerned about the number of people who bought any brand fogger. So that's 750 out of the total number of households of 10,000. So I threw the Big Bomb Flea Fogger number in there just to kind of make you think a little bit and figure out which number needs to go into this particular formula. Okay, brand penetration. This is where you're going to use that 500 instead of the 750. So here we're focused on what percentage of the population has purchased our particular brand. So instead of putting 750 over 10,000, you'll put 500 over 10,000. Okay, and that gives you 5%. Penetration share. Once you get brand penetration and market penetration, then you can create a fraction among these two to give you again, what we call penetration share, and it's just the relationship between brand penetration, how much of the market buys your product, divided by how much of the market buys any product in this particular product category or market. Okay, so calculated before, brand penetration is 5%, market penetration is 7.5%, so penetration share becomes 5 divided by 7.5 equals 66.67%. Okay, so a question you may be asking is, well, if you convert 5%, for example, to a fraction, it should be 0.05, and 7.5% should be 0.075. You're absolutely correct, but as long as you convert both in the same direction, you can do it either way. So I could easily have put 0.05 divided by 0.075 and arrived at the exact same number. Okay, share of requirements. Okay, so this is a little trickier to kind of wrap your heads around. Okay, So let's just go through this slowly. Okay. Share of requirements is what percentage of all purchases in the product category by your customers bought your products. So, in other words, anyone who buys our product, we want to know what percentage of all their purchases in our product category are of our particular brand. So, if you think about it, unless customers are 100% loyal, they're going to buy your brand, they're going to buy other brands as well. And we just know that's going to happen. Okay, so, but what percentage of those brands that consumers buy are actually ours? That's share requirements. Okay, so Aloha brand sunscreen, 1 million total units were sold. Okay, also there were another 1 million units of all other sunscreens sold. So that leaves us with a total number of category purchases of 2 million. Okay, so our unit share requirements becomes the number of units of our brand sold divided by total number of category purchases purchased by our brand. So you're buying, everyone who bought Aloha, some of those bought some other brands as well. Okay, so we know that 1 million total Aloha units were sold, but we also know that Aloha purchasers also bought our competitors' brands as well. So the total units sold of Aloha and competitors by anyone who bought at least one unit of Aloha was 2 million. So you just do a very, very simple fraction there. 1 million over 2 million is 50%. Okay, so 50% of all units sold, all units purchased in the sunscreen category by our customers were of our product. Let me repeat that because, again, it's hard to wrap your heads around. So 50% of all sunscreen purchases made by our customers were of our particular brand. Okay, you can do the same thing with revenues like it says there. You just change the numbers. There's not much else to say there. Okay, SOL usage, a lot easier to understand here. This is just what percentage of your customers only buy your brand. Okay, they don't shop around. They are completely loyal. We know we've got 10 cat food customers. 7 of them bought the brand Arda, 5 bought the brand Bella, 3 bought the brand Constanza. So we know if we're Bella, we know that we had 5 total customers. Okay. We also know that 3 of those customers were perfectly loyal. Okay. This is just extraneous information here to help you understand. Bella customers who also bought Arda was 2. Number of Bella customers who also bought Constanza was 0. So our SOL usage becomes 3 divided by 5, or 60%. So I put the extra information there to help you kind of force you to wade through all the information to figure out what's relevant for this fraction. So the numerator is those who bought only you, and the denominator is number of customers that bought you at all, either solely or along with others. Okay, so our SOL usage percent is 60%. So 60% of our customers don't shop around, they only buy us. Usage index, another one that's kind of hard to wrap your heads around here. Okay, but basically do our customers buy more than all customers? Okay, do our customers buy more in our product category than all customers? Okay, so Shower Fun household shampoo, the average customer buys 6 units of shampoo across all the population. Households make 4 purchases of shampoo. Okay, so our usage index becomes 6/4 or 1.5. So let me run through that again. So the numerator is the average number of shampoo purchases made by people that buy our brand and maybe other brands as well. We don't know. And the denominator is the average number of shampoo purchases made by all households. Okay, so Shower Fund customers buy 6 shampoo purchases over, say it's a year, and overall the average household buys 4 bottles of shampoo. Okay, so we get a usage index of 1.5. So again, another index. An index greater than 1 means that our customers buy shampoo more often or buy more shampoo than the average shampoo customer. Okay, another way to calculate usage index is if you have penetration share, market share, and share requirements. So looking at Shower Fund, again, their market share is 8%. Their penetration share is 20%. And then again, and these things are given. I didn't calculate these anywhere. And their share of requirements is 26.67%. Plug all that into this formula and you get the same usage index of 1.5. So which formula you use depends on which information that you're giving. Okay. All right. Then the chapter moves on into, I wouldn't say more abstract, but less math-related concepts. Okay. So we have this hierarchy of effects model that we talk about. So this whole idea that we need to first make consumers aware, and then help develop some sort of attitudes about the product, and then ultimately that will lead into some sort of usage. Okay, so sometimes we need to just calculate what our awareness numbers are. Usage is great, but we have to get people to that point. And especially new brands, new products, awareness is kind of where you start. Okay. How you measure these things, typically you use surveys. Marketing research, you'll learn about a lot of this, okay? But there's some examples of how you might gauge awareness, attitudes, as well as usage, okay? Once purchases have been made, you can also ask them questions about their attitudes. Again, using a survey. On a scale of 1 to 5, how satisfied are you with the service you received? They can answer anywhere, just those 5 options: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So here's some sample responses that were given. This is a hotel survey. Okay. 3 people gave him a 1, 7 people gave him a 2, 40 people gave him a 3, and so on and so on. Okay, so it gives you some good information to gauge how you're doing. Okay, and so the challenge is how do you interpret this information? If you're trying to gauge how well liked you are, what do you do with this? Are you only concerned with the 5s? Are you concerned with the 4s and the 5s? Are you more concerned with the 1s and 2s? And also, what do you do with the 3s? There's a lot of different things you can do. You have to make some decisions about how you're going to process this information and evaluate this information. One thing we can do is what we call Net Promoter Score, where we take a percentage of promoters, what we call promoters, and we subtract from that the percentage of detractors. So promoters are people that say good things about you or have had a good experience. Detractors are the opposite, those that have negative feelings or negative feedback. Okay, TWU sends out a College of Business survey. Okay, they find that 20% answered 4 and 5 on the survey, and they're going to interpret the 4s and 5s, like this, the 4s and 5s as the promoters. They're going to interpret the 1s and 2s as detractors, and they're going to call the 3s neutral. Okay, so 20% answered 4 or 5, so they're the promoters. 70% answered 3. We're going to call those neutrals. and then 10% answered 1 or 2, we're going to call those detractors. So to calculate the Net Promoter Score, all you do is just take 20 minus 10, the promoters minus the detractors, and that gives you a Net Promoter Score of 10. What's a good score here? Well, the higher the better, okay? So if you're at College of Business, are you happy? Probably not, only because you've got 70% that just didn't really commit one way or the other. They're just kind of neutral. So you want to do some things to try to convert those neutrals into promoters, and that should raise your Net Promoter Score. So you probably already noticed this, but the neutral score does not figure into the Net Promoter Score number at all. Okay, and again, you can use surveys to determine promoters and detractors. You can also scan social media to see what people are saying. There's lots of things you can do here. Okay, and that's it for chapter 2. It's kind of a whirlwind there. Hopefully that information stuck. Definitely read through the book. If you're not clear about something, just please do not hesitate to let me know. I will answer any questions that you have. That's it. Thanks. Have a great week.